schedule the jobs in the west, which will be from Lambo to Crown Point and Signal Hill to Bethel and Buku and so on. That's the western part on a Mondays. And Tuesdays we go from Concordia up into Lansford. That's the northern side. And on Wednesdays we tackle from John Dial to Charlottesville. And Thursdays we do Northwest. Those are areas like Providence, Lekoto, Plymouth, Golden Lane, and those areas there, Mount Grace. On our Thursdays and Fridays, we do around the town, like from Government House Road, coming back to Montpelier, Bacalet, and so on, around the town on a Fridays.
My goodness.
So schedule it. Yeah. So in case if there's an emergency, well, then we have to flex the suit. The
flex the suit. Yes.
We have a pattern. We have a schedule.
So what would deem an emergency, like a pole fall down and people get disconnected?
Yes. Yeah. You know, you have a burnout in a meter base, as the case may be. People lose current.
Yes.
So the technical will respond, and the electrical inspector will also respond.
Yes, and the fire services maybe too.
Well, if necessary.
So like when a place get burned down and the who claims that it's an arson, or who will claim, I'm talking big thing now.
Yeah.
Because you are right there with the fire services and the police.
Well, what will happen that the procedure really is that the electrical inspector will visit the job with the fire service and the police. It doesn't always happen simultaneously, but that's the desired thing. At the electrical inspectorate, the system, as I met there, we don't really conclude because of the fact that there is no certified forensic agency.
Yes, around.
That's part of the weakness in the system, not just in Tobago, but also in Trinidad.
Yes, it's a weakness.
Forensic unit, right? So you train the electrical inspectors. The electrical inspectors have an idea what goes on, but if you go to court, the lawyer is going to interrogate you and ask you for your certificate in your forensic. You know what I'm saying? Because to determine that the fire is so, this is the cause of the fire when the wires are burnt up and all of that. For that evidence to stand up in court, it's quite tricky. It will be struck down in the court. Although we may have an idea, if it's electrical, we might very well be able to determine that. But the lawyers will question you concerning the legality of your statement.
Of your statements.
Because they're looking for some sort of forensic qualification. You know what I'm saying? So that's something that the government or governments need to deal with. I think there was one person, I think, from Plymouth who would have studied that, who have undergone that type of study in England. But there is no unit. One weakness here, I must say, I talk more for Tobago, it also applies to Trinidad, is that we have not really taken responsibility for circumstances here. As I often make the statement that Tobago is not on governmental mode. So you see, you have House of Assembly and you have so-called politicians and so on. Tobagonians are not in governmental mode to take self-responsibility for every aspect of life. And that's why you have the weakness in the politics, as it were, so that many people you see lining up for political office and so on, they're not really in that mode. They go because it offers a little status, money, materialism, and so on.
A way to help their families.
Yeah, a little rank and so on, but they're not really in governmental mode. And this is why many of the prescriptions that you see coming forward to prescribe a way for Tobago, these prescriptions are so poor. You know what I'm saying? Look, for instance, if I may just shift gears a bit. Now,
go ahead, you go ahead. It's not
in this situation here right now, where clearly we need something to to fill the breach, to fill the gap. And the two former chief secretaries would have sent to Trinidad a bill called it self-government, and it has nothing to do with self-government. The bill that they sent there is for some responsibilities, and the more significant responsibilities, they left it to Trinidad. But nevertheless, they marketed that bill and called it self-government in Tobago. You know what I'm saying? Trinidad is not responsible for the life and story of Tobago. That is the point of view of Tobagonians. This is our life, and this is our story. And we are the ones to navigate and to adjudicate and to legislate and to policy our story, our different paragraphs and feelings, to do our own punctuations and so on. That is us. We must be the subject of our own sentence. You know, when we were at school, we would have learned the different parts of speech.
Yes, man. As participle.
Yeah, they are the different parts of speech. And I think too, as being victims of the whole colonial mindset and so on, in the way we teach. I also taught, I didn't put that on the resume, but I also taught you, and I taught that.
But we were about to ask you that, but you started to jump the gun.
Yeah, I taught that.
So hold up. There's another question before you get to that part. Yeah. So can we have that question? Because I don't think we have electrical schools that function in 100%.
This is what I'm saying. As I said, and it's just amazing, because here it is, you have to run a society where you don't have people trained to run the institutions.
Hello.
You know what I'm saying? It's so amazing. I am wondering what really going on. Look, for instance, here. Well, Trinidad never saw about Tobago. You had John Donaldson Technical Institute in Trinidad. You had San Fernando Tech. You have the University of the West Indies, and then you have UTT. So Trinidad, the government legally and geographically of Trinidad and Tobago has been a Trinidad government. It's Trinidad. They failed from the oath of office, because the oath of office, they use Bible and Gita and all kind of things they use, and swear to Almighty God that they will discharge their responsibilities without fear, favor, affection, or ill will. But can Tobagonians say that we have been served without ill will? Yeah. There has been an actual ill will against the people of Tobago. And that is why the population of Tobago has not grown. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
We had a place where you could have gone and learned electrician, and that was called the Mount St. George Youth Camp.
Yeah. And the said the Kamala Prasad, the Cesar government, that they are the ones that they closed down the youth camps. Not just in Tobago. They closed down the youth camps in Tobago and all over Trinidad. And some people have the theory behind that too. Some people have theories. I've heard theories that the reason for closing it down was really to disadvantage African people. I don't know. But we're
not going to go there tonight.
That's what I'm saying. So what I'm saying to you, it's very stupid by any stretch of the imagination that you're going to close it down and you have no replacement. And then the PNM government came up with a set of short course program, MyLat, this, that, and a set of foolishness. People, if you have to run institutions, you have to run the electricity supply institution. You have to have people who are properly trained.
Yes.
You have to run an electrical inspectorate. You have to have people who are properly trained. You want to run the license office, whatever you do. You have to have people who are professionally and properly trained. So when you go out on the job, there's no guessing. You can't run a society, a nation, if your people aren't trained. So, and it brings you back to the question.
So while you got the opportunity to teach, are you teaching now 1 and 2? Do you believe that we should have a better institution in Tobago for electrical? See that electricity is such an important and still dangerous.
Well, of course, you have to, and to the level of engineering and so on. You need a comprehensive technical university in Tobago.
Yes. There's a question here, though. There's a question here.
Right up.
There's a question, and you will answer most of what you're saying here now. Have you ever considered starting a primary school mentorship program to introduce girls to careers? You know, I kind of want to see Tobago women on different levels. Especially right now, I see a Tobago woman that could do so much, but she doing so little because she was accepted in the form of mediocrity. So girls to career in electrical engineering installation in Tobago. A place where girls can excel, a place where girls can study, a place where girls wouldn't be victimized and believe that you want to play man. You're a tomboy. Tell us.
Well, first of all, I think you need to generally take care of both men and women. You make the opportunity available, and
Yes.
those who are so inclined, because I believe people must work and build careers where their giftings are, where your talent is.
With the talent.
Yes, because I believe that God pre-packaged us into the world. So I might be talented in music. You know what I mean? So people have different gifts, and people must develop the gifts, the talents that God
and the anointing, and the anointing is an anointing.
Yes, that is what it really is inside of them.
Yes.
So let captivity captives and give gifts unto all men.
Yes, man.
So he gave gifts unto us, and those are the things that we need to develop. What parents and the society need to do is to identify the talent early o'clock.
Yes, man.
Now it's wasting a lot of time, and so with a lot of generalization. You have to send people in the direction they need to go.
Yes, man.
When you leave school, you're like fish out of water. You don't know what to do. You leave school, like you don't know what to do. You know fishing. No, what career I want to go into, and so on. So I'm saying we're not really organized properly in that regard. So we need as I said, we have to come out on governmental mode, and we need to decolonize. We need to decolonize our mind, to take out all the colonial cobwebs that are in our minds and so on. And really, there's no failure. God could not make a human being in his own image and likeness to fail. We were wired to succeed.
But you have to note clearly that you have to, the vocation in which you are called.
Yes,
it's a calling.
Yes, you have to identify that. So like
so there's a question here from Brother Robert Wendell Dexter. He said, what are the measures taken in Tobago to conserve electricity? What do you think about solar energy?
Well, solar energy is quite excellent, and it takes the burden off the electricity grid. Solar energy speaks to independence, actually. The independence of the consumer, the client, the customer.
Yes.
You have your own solar system there. You're basically essential current gone, but you're still online.
Yes.
So solar is I think the world is going solar in any case, and governments, the authorities in Tobago have to look along those lines,
So would there be use for you?
Well, whatever you mean use in terms of the
inspector.
Well, yeah, you always have that. The solar is really you can maybe phase out eventually. I could see that maybe years from now, but if the house still has to be wired,
yes,
insulation still has to be wired. But solar now is a supply source. Although you have like solar lights and so on that you will have hang up all outside for perimeter lighting and so on.
Yes,
solar.
I'm loving this show. My God,
your internal installation will still have to be wired and inspected and certified. Solar energy is quite powerful too. You see,
so there's a question here for you. Are there any
crazy? You don't know what to do with it.
Keep watching the camera. Keep watching the camera. There is a question here for you. Are there any solar panels in Tobago?
Yes, of course. I've gone to homes with solar panels and so on.
About how many have you seen?
I've seen a few. The last one I did was in Mount Pleasant, in Bethany down there. I'll come across about 4 or 3, 4 or so.
Okay.
Right? But you can't.
That's
but
not a lot.
Yeah,
That's not a lot. So is it a very expensive method? Oh, it's expensive.
Yeah, but the package itself is expensive. You know, but I'm saying you need trained people to deal with it also, right? Because it's heavy energy containing inside it. So it's
I
more.
find you didn't expound on the question that I asked.
Which one?
About girls. I know we had to include boys.
No.
But are you going to be able to speak now? Because a lot of women I know could be electrician, but because of the stigma.
Well, but I think people are breaking away from that. As I say, I don't know if necessarily we need to say to tell the girls or the ladies that you can, and perhaps we need to.
You may need to.
We can pursue. This is also a career option for you.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? But I'm saying that fundamentally, I like to see people go into a direction where they are gifted in, where they have a calling.
Well, you see, a lot of us, you know the Bible, you're a preacher yourself. Many of us are called and few are chosen. So those who are chosen, you get them. But then some people you have to call because you can see something in them that they can't see for themselves. So
it's important to
Dr. Duke want to say something.
Well, you know, of course, I'm a big proponent of girls in STEM and STEAM, and the truth is, studies have shown, right, representation matters, and so you can only aspire most times to be something you've seen be possible. And so the first is just introducing them to the idea. Obviously, boys, yes, but right now there's a disparity, right? Which is most families, not even families, are aware that their daughters can pursue these careers. And so instead of only channeling them to being chef, hotel servers, etc., I would love to see more of them, you know, you're right. They have to ultimately make the choice. But if you're not aware of what's possible, you know, you're not aware that you could be a contractor, if you're not aware that you could be an architect yourself. I know Tobago now has one female architect, but again, the goal is to have more than one.
Well, I think where you're coming from there is really a paradigm.
A shift. There's a shifting.
To break the traditions and the way that the society,
the norms. Yes,
as a whole, would have perspectivized, so to speak, so that you can have that in terms of governmental philosophy, you know, to inject that into the society to let to break the barriers, you know.
And do you think electricians should be taught at what level in school? They should be taught.
Well, as I said, the entire education system, I don't know if I said it.
No, you didn't say it yet.
But
tell us now.
What we've seen as the education system. I will basically revamp that. I don't know that people need to be going to school to just. Why is it that we have determined that secondary school education must be? You know, why should it be? I think it should be comprehensive. The things that should be mandatory, everybody, numeracy, literacy, you must have a history of yourself. You must know yourself in the
languages.
World, to locate yourself. So
languages,
numeracy. Well, a foreign language of your choice.
Yes.
As the case may be, right? Not just simply of a choice to, but a language or a foreign language that we may need to engage in, you know,
because of tourism.
Well, who will interact with because of business.
Yes.
Business. Also, it's good to learn an African language.
That's what I'm talking about. No school up to now.
To connect with our roots and so on. Business, I think, should be taught and practiced in the schools because of the experience of colonization that we have been in. We need to be rewired. You've seen other ethnicities going into business normally, so that you will find people from other ethnicities at the age leaving school at the age of 14 and so on and becoming millionaires and billionaires. And I've seen it happen right here in Tobago, yeah. And
Yes.
you have the African people going up to the level of PhD and so on and still poor. And you have African, you have people who come from Trinidad, from different ethnicities, come across and they left school at the age of 14 and all kind of different things. And in fact, I went by business place and you know the guy told me, this will be shocking. He prevented his children from going to secondary school. His children passed for the Signal Hill secondary school, used to be comprehensive, no secondary. He said, Mr. James, he said, I took the amount of money. He said, I did a calculation of the amount of money that I would have used over the years for school books, clothes, transportation to carry them to
wow.
school. And he said, I used that same money and I opened a business for them.
Wow. They are millionaires now.
It's something that has plagued us. We don't know how to turn 10 cents into 20 cents into 30 cents. We need to know, we need to learn that, we need to practice that. So if I have my way in the schools every week, if not every day, there will be a time set aside where the children will be engaged in business activity, buying and selling in the school, because we need to rewire the children at a very early age to let them know how to, we call it risk, but they're not really risk.
No, it's
a man so and so shall he reap.
Yes, the choices you make, you make.
In that. So I will cause the parents and them and the family to make products, give it to the children. The children will also engage in product making too and come to the school, and you have a period there where they are buying and selling. That is
yes, man. Trading.
Trading, you know, business. We need to get into that. Because there are some people, that's all they do all the days of their life. They always thinking how they can turn $1 into $100.
Into $100, man.
Yeah. And 100 into $200 and $300. Because our life is about. Life is about constant trading. The experience has brought us turn us into. We just simply consuming. So everybody else is making products. And this is why it's so important to overcome slavery. Because in slavery, you're caught up with problems all the days of your life. It has affected the Africans in America and around the world. We're always involved in problems. This is why one reason Tobago has to overcome this situation here. We're struggling every day, caught up with problems. And whilst other people are moving on because they are free, we are still to overcome bondage.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
We are still believing that corruption is the only way to success.
Yes. Well,
so we have a question here for you. And this one is multifaceted. You can go where we are allowed to go. Certain topics, certain areas like race and stuff like that, we are going to avoid it until when you are back. Are you going to be back? I'll need you.
Well, once you have me, I'll be here. I won't decline.
Round of applause, my people. Brother James is going to be back. But before Brother James leaves, Mr. James, you are a highly regarded radio personality in Tobago. Can you share some highlights and lowlights of the aspect of your career and its relationship to the Tobago diaspora, taking into consideration our six?
Well, my entry into and it really started off with television, actually.
Television?
Yeah, with television. Back in 2000, when me and two other gentlemen, we would have established the Tobago Liberation Movement.
Was your brother Winford James around at that time?
Well, he was around, but he wasn't involved in the
initial.
No. When I was working at Works there, and a gentleman came around with a leaflet marked African Liberation Day. And it dropped on the ground. As he came to give me one, it dropped on the ground. And I bent down to pick it up. When I bent down, I saw the the caption there, African Liberation Day, and it immediately hit my mind. I said, well, why not Tobago Liberation? You know, so I called the two partners and we discussed the idea, and then one suggested that it should be foundation. So the first incarnation was the Tobago Liberation Foundation, because he said we will need funding. And then I realized that things.
So what's the word? Foundation or foundation?
Well, at first, it was called Tobago Liberation Foundation. Now, the name I had in mind was Tobago Liberation Movement.
Yes.
One of them suggested it should be foundation because we will need funding. So we call it that at first. And then later on, I realized that the word Tobago in Trinidad and Tobago is used as a zone. So you're having North Trinidad, South Trinidad, Central, East Trinidad, and then you have Tobago. Because when you play cricket and football, they divided the regions like that. So Tobago become a zone. So you have Tobago zone of the Football Association, Tobago zone of the Cricket Association, and then you have North.
But in our times, we had county. They took that away. Trinidad keep their county, they keep their parishes. But Tobago end up with the Tobago House of Assembly.
Yeah, the whole of Tobago end up being a zone, and I realized that something's wrong with that mentality.
Hello.
So that and I wanted to challenge the Trinidadians too. It's a bit of a reverse psychology. So we changed it. I discussed it with one of them, and we changed it. Now we started to call it the National Liberation Foundation. In fact, when I interacted with one of them, Trinidadian media personality, he wanted to know that national meaning of Trinidad and Tobago, because we see when things happen in Trinidad, they call it national, just like that. It has no Tobagonian involved in that. It has nothing to do with Tobago. You see, but the psychology is Trinidad perceive themselves as a nation. Tobago critically perceives itself as a branch. Because Trinidad being the power structure and having the media operating down there, Tobago had no media at all, you know. So no media in Trinidad have been shaping the psychology of Tobago. So that even when media came to Tobago, the first time Tobago had television station and radio station, I hear news announcers in Tobago saying, "Here in the sister." So Tobago is a sister of itself.
Wow.
If you understand what I'm saying, that because Trinidad, we didn't interpret certain things properly. When Trinidad is reading their news, they're not reading.
So what the word side by side stand for?
Well, all that. Let me just explain this, and I'll get to that question with the side by side. So when you have Trinidad, when the Trinidad media people are speaking, they are speaking to Trinidad. So the person who is reading the news is first person. The Trinidadian in the audience is second person, and then Tobago is third person. So then they're telling the second person Trinidadian in the audience and in the sister aisle today. You could be speaking to me and tell me in the sister aisle. If you're speaking to me, I'm the second person in the conversation with you. And the Tobagonians know, hearing that they are sister aisle. When we got media in Tobago, we start calling ourselves, we start saying here in the sister aisle, when in fact it should be Trinidad, should be the sister aisle. So Tobago, the mindset of Tobago is well damaged. Trust me. So that in Tobago today, we call ourselves residents of Tobago because the Trinidad media have been calling us residents. I'm not a resident of Tobago. Tobago is my homeland. Tobago is my country. The next thing they say, it's the land of my nativity. The next thing they say, and when they refer to Tobago, they say on the island. I am not on an island.
So aren't we on an island? That's what we learn from school.
Yeah, no, island is geography. Like for instance, when you're going home, you don't say I'm going house.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? And all of that, the Tobago mind has to be repaired. That's one of the reasons why they are still dominating us. And our politicians are prescribing the nonsense that they are prescribing as legislation for us. Right? Tobago is our homeland. It is the homeland of Tobagonians. The most expensive labor ever in Tobago is the labor of the African people who came here 400 years ago. And this is all, and there is no other competitor. And Trinidad has no right to be ruling in any part of the story of Tobago. And hereby, the idea of side by side, let me see if I should answer your question before I forget. Side by side was not really meant for Tobago and Trinidad. It's something we need to know. The author of the anthem.
The anthem, he's a Chinese. He's a Chinese.
Castigan.
Yes.
The anthem was meant for the West Indies Federation that failed. So they were saying all the islands in the West Indies. And in that West Indies Federation, that parliament, Williams had nominated Robinson, and maybe for his own reasons to as a representative for Tobago. So it was all the islands of the West Indies. But between Trinidad and Tobago, we never had a constitution that made Tobago and Trinidad or constituted Tobago and Trinidad side by side. The Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago at independence, and also in 1976 in the Republican Constitution, which is a simple adjustment, that Constitution contained Tobago as a ward. In fact, in the government public literature in Trinidad and Tobago, Tobago is still a ward in the literature. You know what I'm saying? So there's no real independence yet. And this is why 1962 has to start all over again. This is where the 66 come in, and this is what God is doing. There's no side by side here. And so that when I started up and I started to become real conscious, I stopped standing to the anthem and I don't sing it. So official functions will be going on and I don't stand to that anthem because I lie. And I'm fully persuaded and fully convinced. When I became, perhaps I drifted off a bit too. But when I started out in the media, as I said, in Tobago here, I'm answering the question. When I started out in the media, Tobagoans were not familiar. We didn't have much personalities in media in Tobago. So I used to be leaving Tobago, going down to Trinidad, because when I started the movement here for constitutional reform, I'm the person who started that for constitutional reform.
You are the person that started what?
In the whole of Tobago and Trinidad, Anthony James is the person who started the campaign for constitutional reform. The first place I mentioned that open in public was in 1998 when Hochoy Charles and Vanish James and then come around with the Tobago development plan. It was at the Belle Garden Community Center. They prepared a lovely development plan. And when I looked through the plan, I saw nothing about constitutional reform. Act 40 of 1996, which is what Tobago is governed by now, was just a year and something old. Because that act came in on the 10th of December in 1996.
Oh, you remember the dates?
Yeah, because it's published there. Well, I end this, you know. I end this. This is my calling action. This is my calling here. So that in by the middle of 1998, so that would just be about a year and a half. You know what I'm saying? Because December 1996, you have the act. So discard December and come January to December 97, and then into 1998. This is about a year and a half. And they came around and they had a lovely development plan, and I looked through it, you know, I turned the pages quickly and I went through. And I saw nothing about constitutional reform. And I got up and I told the meeting, Vanessa and Hochoy, and then I said that Act 40 of 1996 cannot realize Tobago's potential. Those are my words, verbatim. And what we need is constitutional reform. As I looked through the plan here, and I saw nothing about constitutional reform. And by the time it got around to 1999, Dr. Winston Murray actually had come back from the States and set up the Tobago Community College. And this is a man that we need to pay homage to in Tobago. And the authorities that were at the time, even the very NER, they were trying to sideline Dr. Winston Murray because they saw him as a threat. But he came with real, and I'm telling you, he's superior in understanding more than any of them. For what I charge all of them, you could hold all of them together. They are not in Dr. Winston Murray's class. And I learned a lot. I was very blessed to be schooled by Dr. Winston Murray in the politics of Tobago.
Wow.
Tobago and Trinidad. I learned a tremendous lot from him. So that
so you learn a lot from Dr. Winston Murray.
Yeah.
Did you learn anything from APT James?
Well, yes, because Dr. Winston Murray had APT James literature in his library there. So
Wow.
Dr. Winston Murray, I learned the truth, the substance about APT James' representation in the parliament in Trinidad.
Wow.
And I also, this guy also published a booklet concerning APT James, Andre Philip, a nice booklet. So I would have learned.
I would get that.
About APT James there too. So from that booklet from Andre, Dr. Winston Murray was the real man, because he was also a follower or a student, so to speak, of APT James.
So we are going to be pressing for time. But then I want to ask you something here now. Because there is no way in our constitution and with the practices of political parties where people is going to jail for crimes that they commit. Number one, they're not calling it crime. Everybody, corruption. Corruption is crime. With APT James' time, I want you to tell us that women and men went to jail. What for? Okay. How many women in Belle Garden? You don't have to call their name because their family might feel bad right now. But can you roughly say about how many women in Belle Garden went to jail and leave their children and family?
I really don't have no account of that.
So that will be your homework.
Well, no problem with that. But I don't have any account.
I could call.
Oh, okay.
I could count. I could tell you.
But
I want you to tell us what crime did they commit.
Well, I could research that.
You not could. You have homework. The same way you are going to open up a school.
Yes.
You are going to do more than what you are doing right now.
Well, the school will come later on, consistent with the calling, because I said Tobago has to be constituted as a nation. We were not called to be a branch of Trinidad. We were not called to be slaves and second-class citizens of Trinidad and having Trinidad owning all our resources and empowering themselves, and not even the white body of Trinidad, but really the power class in Trinidad. Those are the ones that are really benefiting and inherit all the gas and oil. Tobago is the richest country in the Caribbean. I want to tell our people in the diaspora.
Are we country or are we island?
Yes, well, I will go back and answer that. An island is only geography. An island is only incidental. Tobago's geographical name is island, but the political name of Tobago is country. We don't need Trinidad to call ourselves country.
What makes the difference? Explain, because I know a lot of people, because right now, like a lot of people doesn't understand that when I'm on my life, it's not to play games.
That's true. Right?
I was anointed to be a cultural teacher.
Okay.
A spiritual advisor, not as what people is go to see a man or see a woman. I am here to tell pastors and preachers, let the church say amen.
Let the church say amen. Right? So that island is geography. Your homeland is your country. England or Britain is an island. Australia is an island. New Zealand is an island. But you don't hear they calling themselves on the island and on the island and they call it on the island. Island is only geography. Your political name, once people live there, your home, your house is a home. Your house, you're not going house. I'm not going house. I'm going home. Tobago is my home and it's my homeland. And
because people in Trinidad just live and go down the island.
Yes. You know what I'm saying?
Explain that.
Right. So that the island mentality doesn't speak to ownership.
Citizenship.
Yeah, it doesn't speak to that. It doesn't speak to group of fundamental citizenship, yes. But more particularly, ownership. You have to take ownership with your words.
Yes.
Tobago is not just an island, it is a country. And if we continue speaking that detached, mentally, psychologically, spiritually detached language, we are making ourselves squatters on an island. We are simply squatters. And in fact, the official political status coming out from Trinidad for Tobago is one of squattership. Because if you live in a place and you can't even regulate your own land, your own affairs, Tobago can't make a law in Tobago. Imagine that. After 400 years.
My God.
Law for Tobago. Meaning to say, we are just squatters. This is what the politics has done to the people of Tobago. We are just squatters. All Tobago's land titles and all these things are wrapped up in Trinidad. We can't deal with that for ourselves. We do not have our own legal system. I can't be involved in a politics and advocate a politics that does not really properly represent Tobago, that overturns Tobago from colonization to decolonize Tobago and make it into the owners of here. I was saying earlier on, we must be the subject. At the point I was making when I was talking about the different parts of speech. The subject in a sentence is a part of speech that directs the sentence.
Sentence, amen.
That directs it. It sets up the predicate, what we used to call the predicate. The real word for that should have been the purpose of the sentence. And the object is the noun that comes at the back end of the sentence. So we're supposed to be determining the objectives and the purpose so that we know what we are predicating. The subject does that.
Yes, subject matter. Yes.
Subject in our own sentence. The story is ours. The story is not Trinidad. We have all been tied up in a colonialism here when we were from European and more specifically Anglo-European colonization, meaning to say England, for their own colonial purposes. They linked the two colonies together, and they were not considered as island. It's colony. So they linked the two colonies.
Colonies, yes.
Together. They didn't put the Afro-Trinidad and the Indo-Trinidad, and they did not put this Trinidad in charge of them. The two colonies were under the English government in Port of Spain.
Wow.
You have for over 100 and something years, there was no government located in Tobago. So Tobagonians now psychologically will look into Trinidad now for government. And so the mindset has been now redirected. The mindset has been put in that direction there. And it is the same mentality, the same mental and psychological construct that still exists. So that the Trinidadians now, after the British went back, they end up inheriting the entire system with nothing in Tobago for Tobagonians to inherit. So they are now pretending now to be the owners of our sea with all the oil and gas. And I'm telling you, there are tremendous oil and gas all around Tobago's waters. They can't hide it anymore. It cannot be hidden. The Block 22 off Castara area there, I was around in 2008. I see a fisherwoman, she cried in Shore Park because the government and the House of Assembly refused to come and represent them. So they sent Petro-Canada in a meeting in Shore Park, in the conference room in Shore Park, a lady Nero. Tears came out of her eyes. They sent the Petro-Canada, representatives of Petro-Canada to come to talk to the Tobago fishermen because the House of Assembly people didn't have the belly to come there, to come to talk to them. So they stopped the fishermen from fishing. And they drilling now for gas. They found it. One of the wells, because they had people from the inside who were getting information from. One of the first wells they discovered had 3 trillion cubic feet of gas. That well alone will mine Tobago for generations to come.
Wow.
Block 22. Because they figure God and bless us. You know what I mean? Block 22 is 12 times larger than the land space of Tobago, because Tobago is a narrow strip. And Tobago internationally, by international law, only I'm saying this to the world here, Tobago is a bigger country, a bigger island than that of Trinidad. What Trinidad has is land space. They have no water space and air space. Tobago land, sea, and air is bigger than Trinidad, land, sea, and air. Tobago is only a small island. We have a smaller population, which makes us even richer because we have more resources with less people.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? And that is why they are trying to hold on. And in fact, Mr. Manning, I have the document here, the Hansard. Mr. Manning confessed it in Parliament in 2008, on the 7th of July in 2008. They were having a discussion concerning the municipalities amendment corporations. And if you could just read it here. I know I'm going all about the place here. Right? Because one thing is leading to the next. Right? This is the Hansard here from the Parliament. Here is what went down.
So do you think Mr. London the Prime Minister Keith Rowley. Do you think they have this in-depth knowledge?
They are aware because Dr. Rowley was in the parliament when this went down, you know. You wouldn't believe what Mr. Manning told Mrs. Prasad Bissessar and the opposition. Basically, let me paraphrase. He was saying, let us gang up against Tobago. He was saying, we have our differences down here, but in this matter, we can gang up against Tobago and keep them in bondage. Mr. Manning basically said that in the parliament. And shockingly,
is that alleged? Is that alleged, or you have documentation?
I'm saying I have the evidence here. This is the Hansard, and you can go online and check it out. You just type in online.
Name it.
This is the Municipal Corporations Amendment Bill, 2008-0707. It was a Monday, I think. If you type in the Hansard for July 7th, 07, 2008.
Wow.
0707. Type in the Hansard, Trinidad Tobago Parliament Hansard, and type in, and from there, go to Mr. Manning's speech. It's there. I have it on page 13. The critical part is on page 13 to 2040. And
go ahead, let me hear it.
Audience, let me just read this.
Yes.
This is Mr. Manning on the floor. He says, a comment made by the member for Siparia has triggered something in my head, and that is the question of centralization and decentralization. There is the question of decentralization as opposed to devolution. Let us deal with that issue. Let me make the difference clear. Decentralization means decentralizing the execution function, and the policy formulation remains at the center. That is decentralization. So they're not giving you the power. They decentralize the policy making, as the case may be, and the local governments will implement it. Here he says, devolution is a decentralization of policy making function. Once the policy making function is decentralized, that is devolution. They don't want it. So he says that is what the PNM is saying can result in the fragmentation of the society. You follow what I'm saying?
So you see what we have here?
Your assistant has put it up here.
Yes.
Right?
Not my assistant, that's the producer, that's Dr. Duke.
Right. You follow what I'm saying?
Yes.
And you can see Mr. Manning's speech, and you see. So let me continue.